Hi, everybody. It is the final stretch of this Roman study. We are finishing up chapters 15 and 16 over the next 3 days, and we're so glad you're with us. One of the things that I have personally been very interested in throughout this entire study is the way that Paul communicated with people in Rome. I mean, we know he was writing a letter, so obviously he used written communication. And we know that his message was pretty consistent, maybe even a little repetitive at times, as he worked to communicate the message of Jesus to a community of people that was divided. But I invite you also to think about the ways that Paul was bold in his communication, how he was bold to say things, bold to believe things about the gospel, and how he invited his readers to live bold lives. Here at Calvary, I work in communications. I'm the director of engagement, so I also work with new members, small groups, and volunteers. But part of overall engagement, as we think about it, is helping the church think intentionally about the ways we communicate things. When our team drafts an email, we do our best to be thoughtful about what we send to you. For example, if we have too many exclamation points, you might get overwhelmed with our excitement and enthusiasm and not have room to breathe as you're trying to remember our message. If we put something on social media with a bunch of excited emojis, your teenager might love it, but you might be confused about what those little symbols mean. If we wrote a letter in all caps, you might feel like we're screaming at you. In our written communication, we try to vary when we underline things, when we italicize things, or when we use bold typeface. But hopefully, when you see those things, you know that it's drawing special attention to that thing we're saying. Okay, so why do I even mention this at all? Well, here in Romans 15, verse 14, Paul is getting ready to tie things up with his letter. He started, if you'll remember, at the beginning with a roadmap, and now we're kind of getting to his capstone. And we read this: I myself am convinced, my brothers and sisters, that you yourselves are full of goodness, filled with knowledge, and competent to instruct one another. You're smart people, Paul is saying. You are intuitive, and this far into the letter, I do believe that you know that God takes away your guilt and your shame without any works. You know that there is nothing you can do or not do to separate yourself from God's love. You know deep down that it is good to be inclusive, and it's important to check ourselves when we get judgy. And yet, he continues, I have written to you quite boldly on some points to remind you of them again. And yet, some extra emphasis has been required, Paul tells us. I mean, the Greek language, it may not have allowed for all caps or italicized font, but he used some bold communication for the Roman people. And we can remember that he's boldly communicating to us as well. In order to be bold in this belief that Jesus even changed anything for us, Paul has been bold in the way he's communicated. Why? Why would he even do that in the first place? Well, verse 15 continues, because of the grace God gave me. See, Paul, he has been bold throughout this whole letter, not only because it's what we, not at all because it's what we have to do in order to share our faith, but because of the grace that God has already given us. And if we acknowledge that as our starting place, we can live more boldly. We can be unashamed in following Jesus. So, as you're coming to a close on this study of Romans, here are a couple of things for you to think about. Number one, what in your life are you bold about? We all have something that we're not ashamed to communicate. And number two, how can you be bold in your faith? Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.